Hi, I'm Heather Chaplin, and also thank you so much for having me. We're very new, and it's very exciting to be here in such fantastic company. So quickly, the backstory, journalism plus design. I started at the New School a few years ago, and I thought to myself, well, we have this incredible liberal arts college teaching really rigorous critical thinking, and we have this world-class design school, Parsons, teaching creative design thinking. What would happen if we put the two of them together? What would happen if we said, what are the most important values of traditional journalism that we all want to keep alive, the things that make journalism distinct from other kinds of medium, and we took those, but we said today, 2014, is year one. So 4 years later, because I am in an institution, and thanks to a nice grant from the Knight Foundation, we launched Journalism Plus Design. We just started this fall, and we already have 18 declared majors, and that was with not being allowed to advertise the program, and 96 students taking our class. I've already been asked to almost double the amount of classes that I'm offering in the spring because the demand has been so great. So we're doing things a little bit differently. I'm going to tell you about it. So the first question, the obvious question, is why design? The thing I would start with is context, right? The competition for attention has never been as intense as it is now, and the media ecosystem in which we're operating is one of vast complexity. Put it this way. There was a time not that long ago when the Times landing on your doorstep on a Sunday morning would probably be the most interesting thing that happened to you that day, right? You'd be getting the news, you'd be getting stories, you'd be getting photographs, you'd be getting ideas, opinions. It was the only game in town, so you read it. Now we're dealing with something more like this. So it's no longer news organizations competing with each other. It's not even news organizations competing with entertainment. We are now competing with participatory culture and all of the new technologies that are emerging every day. That means against each other, against entertainment, against people communicating with each other, against all the things that we're creating. We have to acknowledge how complex the media ecosystem has become, and that it is not a guarantee that people are going to pay attention to you just because we're journalists who are keeping alive democracy. No matter how much you say, hey, this is really important, there's no guarantee that people are going to pay attention to it. So where do we go from there? I would say that design is our natural ally and a crucial part of the solution. One of the most important things that I've been struck with by designers, I covered video games for a long time, is that designers pay attention to the whole. They pay attention to the way that every part affects every other part. They're systems thinkers. Thinking systemically means understanding the world as a set of dynamic, constantly changing, complex interrelationships, right? Why is that important? Because if we think of ourselves in isolation, rather as part of something like this, we're never going to be able to make the strategic, intelligent decisions we need to understand where journalism is going to stay alive in there and how and what it should look like. Also, I like to talk about Charles Chaplin, right? The famous 19th century editor of the Pulitzer Papers, not the part where he murders his wife and then goes to Sing Sing and becomes a famous rose gardener. I'll talk about that some other time. But he was a big innovator. He invented the beat system, right? He had a dream one night. So he put up a big map in his news office, and he assigned all his reporters to cover different geographical locations, which nobody had done before. He was taking advantage of a newfangled technology called the telephone. So he would have these reporters call into the office, and then he had somebody in the office write it up, and they got it out there faster than the Hearst papers, and this allowed him to compete. So the second point about design is it's very pragmatic. It's a methodology and a mindset that can help us come up with new ideas and new products to stay alive in that messy, messy thing that I showed before. And then lastly, and probably most profound for me, is that good designers start with the question, who am I designing for and why? Good design puts people at the center of the process. So we found ourselves thinking about this. What would human-centered journalism look like? Can we forge a new kind of journalism that allows us to engage with the participatory nature of the way things work, that puts the people that we serve at the center of the process? Okay, so that's kind of the high-level stuff. Now let me tell you a little bit about what we've been doing in the classroom so far. So we decided to define our community. Our community is going to be our new cafeteria. It might not matter to you guys, but to us at the New School, it's a big deal. We're an urban campus. We now have this cafeteria where supposedly all kinds of great commingling is going to happen. It's going to be a social hub. The first assignment to my students was observe. Get out of the classroom, go into the cafeteria, and see what people are doing and what you see. listen. What are people saying? What do they say that their needs are, right? Because essentially human-centered journalism is a needs-based process. It's not top-down. It's not the reporter going out into the field and saying, this is the story. I'm going to go out there and find things that help confirm what I already thought, but I'm going to go bottom up and listen to what people are actually telling me their needs and their problems are. Then my first assignment was I had them draw maps. So my students were like, you're insane. Why are we drawing maps in a journalism class? But what I was trying to do was to get them to move beyond their own assumptions and to see in a different way. And what we found when they came back is that everybody had seen something different. Some people had drawn maps of the actual layout where the tables were. Some people had drawn maps of the flow of the way people moved. Some people had drawn maps that showed that people from Parsons never sat with people from Lang. So it opened up their eyes in a different way. They also were incredibly engaged. Then we brainstormed. We downloaded everything that everybody had learned. What were the needs? What did you observe? What did you see? And then we synthesized, and we realized there were basically like 5 or 6 themes that emerged over and over and over that we identified as the key needs if we were to serve our community, which was the people in the cafeteria. Then we broke up into teams, and everybody took on a different need. And we said, what's the story? What's your way into this need? How can we create something that people will actually want to engage with? Because at the end of the day, a good story allows people to create an emotional connection, which no matter how much data there is and no matter how fancy you get, is really what's going to get people to hook on. So we talked about the 2 goals I had for them was engagement and impact, come up with a story that addresses the need. Then constraints, right? That's important. So it was analog. This was a test. You're going to have 2 written pieces and 1 visual components, and it's going to be consumed in the cafeteria. Now, why is that last part so important? I'm very, very interested in the context for consumption, right? Like, we know it's no longer just the newspaper, but there's so many different ways and spaces and mindsets that people are going to be in when they're getting the journalism that we produce. Is it on their phone? Is it being forwarded from an email? Is it a Facebook list? And how does that change people's experience of what they're consuming and their expectations? So you have to pay attention to human behavior, and also you have to think about user experience. You tend to hear about user experience mostly in product design, but to me it's almost a philosophy. It's not so much about specifically how you code, but paying attention to what the person who you're trying to reach is going to feel and expect, and how you're going to get them to actually engage. Now, I don't spend a lot of time screaming and yelling in my classroom about how I'm doing things differently or new. And what I have found is that by just introducing these concepts as, hey, guys, this is how we do journalism, it has been amazing to me how naturally people pick it up. And in my 4 years teaching, I've never had a class that's been so energized and so excited. Now, I won't lie, there have been problems. Our class is really committed to collaboration. I think collaboration is one of the key literacy skills of the 21st century, whether you're a journalist or not. And this cafeteria project was a collaboration between the editorial design class at Parsons and my news, narrative, and design class at Lang. We had some problems, right? The designers were, where's my content? The content creator saying they don't understand what I'm doing. But when I did feedback with the students, they said, yes, it was messy. Yes, it was scary. Yes, I thought I was failing all the time. But I never before had realized that the design element actually affected the way people consumed what I was producing. So I feel it was a win, even though there were times where I thought people were going to kill each other. Some of the other cool things we're doing is we're in New York City, so I'm really trying to take advantage of the world-class practitioners that I have access to. So I have WNYC's John Keefe doing a 2-credit pop-up class. It's called Make, Map, Link. It's organized like a cooking show, right? Both literally and conceptually. So he comes in, he shows you something he's made, he shows you how to whip it up yourself. It's open to the public. If you want to take it as a class, you have to come to every class. This is John showing people how to make conductive dough. This is one of our students enjoying how to make conductive dough. The other cool thing that we're doing in the class is that we have a program we call Visiting Editors, and again, this is thanks to the Knight Foundation allowing us to do things like this. Every classroom has a designer, a social media editor, and a data journalist embedded in the class. This is our attempt not to ghettoize things, but to say all of these things are part of what it means to do journalism today. We're an iterative program. That means that we're constantly changing. We launch to learn, we're starting, we're taking feedback, we're gonna grow, and we're gonna change. I don't really see how you can do a journalism program today with any integrity that doesn't acknowledge that it's gonna be iterative and constantly changing and constantly being responsive. The other point I wanna make is that there's a lot of talk about skills. What skills do journalists need to have? The way I like to think about it is skills can be learned and skills will change every 5 minutes. Dispositions are what's important. How do we, oh, I'm buzzing, but I'm gonna keep going. How do we cultivate these important dispositions? How do you help people be curious? How do you cultivate imagination? Because if people can't imagine something new, well, they're not gonna create something new. And how do you help them be better systems thinkers? The last point is that I wanna be a place of playful experimentation. Play, to me, is not a juvenile activity. Play is how mammals learn. Play, as defined by game designers, is the human pushback against a rule system. Play is a way of navigating unknown environments. So if we don't help our students learn how to play, they're not going to be able to go out and face all the newness that they're going to have to invent every day. Also, I have no interest in doing the same work that other programs are doing. I want this to be the place that people come to participate in playful experimentation. And we've strategically placed ourselves on the edge with the idea that the edge eventually informs the center. Thank you so much for having me.
That was terrific. I don't remember, Heather, when you were at ONA, you talked about every day you go to class and you have like a...
Yeah.
Here.
Yes, the thing I think you're referring to, Randy, is the constant fear that I live in every day of my life, that since launching this program, I basically constantly have a stomach ache because it is really, really, really terrifying to be doing something new and to be doing something that's so messy and where you are saying, I have no idea what the outcome is, and I'm okay with that, and it's really hard to be okay with that.
All right, thanks a lot. So I'm sure some of you have that feeling some days when you go to class too, so.